I think their stance on hacked Pokemon is fine, but problem is they allow Pokemon to be used in events that aren't accessible in the game they're being played on. Why wasn't this a problem back in Generation 7 and earlier? The hypocrisy is wild, but base take. Just don't allow imported Pokemon until they're available natively. Pokemon Home. Wait, but now the National Dex is bad, guys! Now the National Dex is bad! And just like that, I was taken back 10 years to when I was calling out bad Poketubers like Shofu for hacking Pokemon. Haydunn being a part of that generation. Here's my take. Pokemon's stance on hacked Pokemon is absolutely dumb. Let the people play. And this is why I was taken back. It's the same refusal to accept that cheating is wrong in Pokemon that we've had for a decade, and it's finally boiled over, but no one can cope. Now, we'll get back to the rest of this, but it just doesn't make any sense. Also, we got other Poketubers jumping in. MandJTV. It's insane to me that Pokemon is being strict about hacked Pokemon. It's the realization that it's been the same thing for a decade, if not only getting worse. Cheaters are getting punished. And that is a bad thing, because the Pokemon community has become so entitled and so toxic. This is why the games are dead. This is why VGC cannot be taken seriously as an esport, and no real person in esports actually cares or even knows Pokemon esports exist. While simultaneously making their official format include Pokemon you cannot obtain in the game the format is played in. And I've already debunked this in my previous videos on the subject. If you haven't watched them, go watch them. This is one of the most insane things, and now we're just reacting to the response, which is even crazier. But in those videos, you can clearly tell that VGC players don't play Pokemon games at all. They do not have the resources inside of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet to even get legal Scarlet and Violet Pokemon, so that's why they have to pop them into PK Hex, modify them if they don't like something with the Pokemon, even if it was once a legal Pokemon someone else gave them, then they hack it to modify it, which is explicitly against the rules, they put it back in and get disqualified, and then cry about it. Urshifu is top tier, yet requires you to own a 4-year-old game's DLC to get it legit. And there's absolutely nothing stopping anyone from getting an Urshifu and putting it into Pokemon Home. You've had 4 years to do this, and there's also not even like crazy restrictions. The Nintendo Switch makes Pokemon acquisition more accessible than ever. Just make a new profile, and then you get a new save on your cartridge, which didn't exist in Pokemon before, and then you can just get another Urshifu. Get as many legendaries as you want through the DLC. Also, the accessibility argument that's popped up in the hive mind of NPCs and losers in the Pokemon community is one of the most dishonest things I have ever seen in Pokemon. Almost every player already had Pokemon Sword and Shield to begin with, and if you're playing competitive Pokemon and you're dedicating to the Pokemon franchise, you should have already played the games, and it's not too much of a barrier to go back and play previous games to get access to content. And the funniest thing to me, Pokemon Legends Arceus, I thought that was like the greatest game ever. Everyone loved it, everyone played it, and yet there's a complete struggle for people to play it and get Pokemon that we knew were going to be legal for the VGC format. Verlisify always right. It's absolutely insane. Also, this is the new player experience for any competitive scene. You gotta play some catch-up. You're going to be at a disadvantage if you start League of Legends today and you have to learn 150 champions all at once instead of starting a decade ago and then being introduced to them and learning about it and being updated with all the patches, ebbs and flows and histories of that of that champion's balance. Wow. It's insane. Oh, here we go. Let's see this false analogy. It would be like the Smash Ultimate circuit requiring you to have Smash 4. It's not a requirement. You don't have to have Urshifu on your team to compete. Competitive Pokemon will be taken more seriously if they built a team builder like Showdown that only works for PvP battles. That's it. That's simple and would avoid all these issues. Holding cheaters accountable and being against cheating as an influencer in the Pokemon community would avoid all these issues. But nah, you're just a fraud that's held hostage by all the children in your audience that are too entitled, and you have no moral integrity, so you're not going to tell them to work for their things and be an honest person and not cheat. And of course, there it is. Some of us don't have the time to grind. If you don't have the time, then you have no right to competitive. This is the separation between regular people and the highest level of competition. And it's no different for any sport or esport. You gotta go out and practice and train for real sports, and that's thousands of hours right there to become in the 0.1% of people that are actually allowed into a professional scene. My bad, 0.5%. But Pokemon is still more accessible than any of that. And as I've talked about in other videos, you don't need thousands of dollars with a high-end gaming PC and competitive peripherals to play Pokemon. You have to put in just as much time into Pokemon as you do for practicing any other game, and that includes Pokemon acquisition. And you have to follow the rules or else you have no right to play. We just see the most insane derangement. That's exactly why they removed the National Dex. So you have to have every game and every DLC and Pokemon Home to have a chance at playing VGC and getting somewhere. Even though the National Dex was never available in a Pokemon game, you still had to have the previous Pokemon games to trade them into that game or go Pokemon Home into that game as well. Same thing for Pokemon Bank. It's not all cheat defending losers. We got some people, bad take, cheating is cheating. But let's go into some other communities. We got Hoodlum Scrafty. Why are certain Pokemon VGC legal if they're not obtainable in that game? Wow, the Pokemon community is actually the stupidest community in all of gaming. Because of the whole National Dex thing in Pokemon Sword and Shield, they forgot this was exactly the way it was in Generation 7 and prior. You couldn't get all of the National Dex Pokemon in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Sun and Moon, whatever, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire. You had to have transfer Pokemon. Pokemon expects so much from its players, and I hope that changes. So much. It's such an expectation to follow the rules and play the games. These are your influencers, people. This is why the Pokemon community is trash and Pokemon VGC is dead. People always ask me for my opinions on other Poketubers or if I think there's any Poketuber that's good or someone to respect. And my default answer is, nah, they're all terrible, they're all bad actors, frauds, they suck, they defend cheating and stuff. And that usually came with the asterisk of, I don't have anything bad to say against Munching Orange. And he's one of the few people that follows me. We've had conversations somewhat recently, especially with like Pokemon Unite and stuff. So like he'll actually engage with me and we'll talk because there's like Pokemon fan camaraderie there. But then there's stuff like this that just validates me saying, no, every Poketuber is bad. If your Pokemon don't have any illegitimate stats, moves, abilities, is it really cheating? Further pushing the lie, the fake narrative of legal Pokemon. There's no such thing as a legal Pokemon that is gen. You can't legally break the rules, you can't legally hack the game or mod your saves or anything. This illegitimate stats, moves, abilities doesn't matter. If the Pokemon is modified or hacked in any way, it violates the rules, it violates the TOS, it disadvantages legitimate players, it is cheating. Yes. Yes. Is it really cheating? Yes. And then the replies to all this is mixed. Is it really cheating in sports to use steroids if everyone can use them? And then, as you can see, toxicity of Pokemon community just cannot deal. Got people agreeing, exactly. I got a 6 IV Ditto that I've used to breed others. Does that count as cheating? Yes, hacked Dittos have been ruled by the Pokemon Company to be cheating. You can't have any hacks anywhere in the lineage of your Pokemon or at any point in your game. Hacked items count. You catch a legendary Pokemon in a hacked Master Ball, that thing's cheated. And we've watched the slippery slope become real. It is not a fallacy, and that's what people got mad at me for a decade ago when I was like, hey, we can't entertain any cheating. No single player cheating, no hacking your game, no ROM hacks, no mods, because that is going to snowball into online. And then it escalated online. Well, yeah, if me and all my friends, we know we're all using PK Hex, then it's okay to use hacked Pokemon. Then it went to the battle spot, because, well, singles isn't even a format, and there's no, like, official VGC thing going on with the ranked ladder for the battle spot anyways, so I can just, like, hack a team and then use that to practice. But don't worry, I'm going to be making my team legitimate for Worlds, and then now the slippery slope has gone full circle to where the cheaters are getting punished at Worlds like we've never seen before, because there's more cheating than we've ever seen before in Pokemon, and now everyone is running defense for the cheaters because it's wrong that cheaters are getting punished. And now there's all these lies about competitive Pokemon being inaccessible, even though it's more accessible than ever. These brats, these entitled losers, they forget what it's like for Generation 7 when you had to breed and you didn't have mints. And also EV training needed to be done by hand instead of just maxing out the vitamins and stuff. And then it only gets harder the more generations you go back. So Game Freak has given the quality of life, bans cheaters for disrespecting it, and then the cheaters cry that they're not the ones being respected. This was also the slippery slope I was calling out when I was like, man, I don't like hyper training in Pokemon Sun and Moon because it's not going to make people cheat less. And then eventually you're just going to see more cheating from it. Verlisify, always right. And then just some other things. These worlds are a joke. Some of the top contenders disqualified on 3-1, 4-1. Ah, yes, they finally get caught cheating as the pack gets thinner and thinner and becomes easier to kind of detect everyone. I've seen the dumbest arguments of people saying, oh, why did they wait until they were battling or the tournament started? There were hundreds of players for the Masters division. The hack check goes pretty deep and needs time. Also, as players drop out of the tournament or move on to the next day, then you have a smaller field of players to hack check. And the thing is, we're not going to know how many players were disqualified from Worlds unless the Pokemon Company makes a public statement, but I'm not holding my breath on that one. I wasn't expecting Japan to go this hard with the hack checking. Yes, I know Japan takes it seriously, but after all of the corruption I've seen in the Pokemon Company International and all the cheating that's just gone unpunished, I gave up hope. So this is actually incredible for me, but then it still comes with caveats. Until Wolfie VGC is banned for his proven cheating, it's kind of worthless. Unless we get a statement, an acknowledgement from the Pokemon Company. If these players that were disqualified are not banned for at least a year, it all means nothing. The thing is, it's going to be impossible to know how many players were banned because not everyone is going to make a statement about them getting banned, and a lot of it's staying like inside the event where it's just like, yeah man, I got crossed out, my tournament's over, I'm just going to go hang out in Japan for a bit now, or I'm just going to go back home or whatever. And it even gets murky going off of the pairings, because did that 1 in 3 player drop, or were they 1 in 2, got disqualified, that was the game loss, and then they were removed from the tournament? And then a surprising amount of late tournament players, 3-1s, 4-1s, that was what this guy said, and then there was a reply saying, I got dropped at 5. If this makes you feel better, I'm DQ'd at 5 too. So this dude had the 5th win to go to day 2, and then was told, nah, cheated. Victories in qualification for day 2 were given to lucky players, because yeah, if your opponent is disqualified for cheating, you get the win, and if you're at 4-1, then that means you get 5, and that's going to put you into day 2. I wonder if there's the implication of, yes, every single person, or at least 99% of the players at Worlds are cheating, so it's not fair that someone randomly gets punished or disqualified for cheating. Like, that could also be it. These could just be like random spot checks, and most of them are turning up with hacked Pokemon. Also, just because someone didn't get disqualified doesn't mean they're not cheating. It just means they were incredibly careful about every little detail. And you know that's what Wolf's crew is cooking. Also, another trend we're seeing, just attacking the Pokemon Company and how the organization is being run instead of being accountable for your actions of cheating. 7 rounds instead of 8 with 130 participants. Boo-hoo, you couldn't get 5 wins with your cheated team. Congrats to TBCI, who made players spend $3,000. And that's another thing that's weird about the argument, that, wait, what do you mean it's inaccessible and BS? To have to pay for Pokemon games you most likely already own, or you just get like a used copy and some DLC, or you pick up Pokemon Legends for $60, when the amount of money it takes to get the championship points, because Pokemon VGC is just pay to win. You can fly out to all the regionals you want, get like top 64 with the attendance, I guess, on multiple events, and then eventually chump yourself into Worlds. Same thing for like international events and whatever. So you're spending thousands to qualify for Worlds, thousands to fly out to Worlds, but then they cry about not having $60 for a Pokemon game. I mean, he's saying it right here, actually. 99% of people competing at Worlds have Gen Mons. Clearly, you don't know what you're talking about. Try to breed legally a Golden Go instead of typing BS under my tweets. Bro, just like admitting they aren't going to do the most basic amount of work. Even getting a 0 IV Golden Go is less work than getting any Pokemon in Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Oh, and Gimme Ghoul isn't even in an egg group?
So that's how you can prove these cheaters know nothing about the game and have put zero work into the game. You don't breed a golden go. You catch a Gimmighoul, which actually isn't hard. You can find Gimmighoul out in the wild. You just keep catching them until you get 0 IV, and maybe they're even soft reset. Also, Pokemon Go transfer. You don't have to spend the 999 coins to find out if your golden go is usable or not. You just get a 0 attack IV Gimmighoul. But again, that's how you know like all this is hacked, and Kurt found this out a while ago. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, there's no mechanic to increase IVs in wild Pokemon, yet many players had wild Pokemon with 6 flawless IVs. There's a difference between best and hyper trained. Half the teams sampled with Golden Go were hacked, 22 of the 25 were naturally 6 IVs. And that's not counting the ones that were like hacked properly and only just did like a natural 0 IV and then got past Kurt's hack check. But this was back in January, so you know it's only gotten worse. And yes, legitimate players know that virtually everyone in Pokemon VGC is cheating, but whenever they state that, the VGC community attacks them as liars, that no, not everyone's cheating, Wolf is legitimate, but then also the VGC community will use that as like a defense now that players are getting disqualified. It's the weirdest open secret that everyone is a hypocrite about. So I'm pretty sure that's what the luck implication is, and that's where it just gets even crazier. Everyone knows everyone is cheating, they deny it until they get caught, and then they deflect with arguments that have no validity whatsoever. But then because Pokemon influencers have only benefited from cheating, the only reason they have what they have is from ROM hacks, is from defending cheating, is from hacking Pokemon so they can make content. They have to run cover for it instead of doing the right thing and being against cheating, because cheating is wrong. So Haydunn also says this: you better believe if I was competing in Japan for the World Championship, knowing that the rules are clear, I would have showed up with legit mons. It just doesn't make any sense. You're either a legit player or you aren't. Also, very easy to say something like this when you don't compete in the format and don't get any Pokemon legitimately, and it's all just hack stuff for Pokemon Showdown battles. And then immediately turning around and contradicting. Being expected to own Pokemon Legends Arceus, Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, Sword and Shield, Crown Tundra, just to have the chance to get a team that would compete is ridiculous and too much to ask for. Too much to ask that you play the previous main series game, the DLC for the previous format, and then also Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl as a main series game in between generations, and Pokemon Legends Arceus, the most acclaimed Pokemon game ever that apparently no one has played. And even that right there makes it more accessible than most other sports or esports. And it's the same NPC talking points. It's too much to ask for. Now, I like this guy. To be clear, no, you wouldn't. Haydunn fans know he wouldn't. In order to be anywhere near good enough to compete for the top of Worlds, you would have to go through that grind, and you absolutely would quit while trying to make each team legitimately, or you'd just be like at such a disadvantage you couldn't even qualify for Worlds. That's why everyone is a proven cheater, because it's impossible to compete legitimately to begin with. I think their stance on hacked Pokemon is fine, but problem is they allow Pokemon to be used in events that aren't accessible in the game they're being played on. Why wasn't this a problem back in Generation 7 and earlier? The hypocrisy is wild, but base take. Just don't allow imported Pokemon until they're available natively. Pokemon Home. Wait, but now the National Dex is bad, guys! Now the National Dex is bad! And then I want to make this point to close out the video, even though I keep repeating myself, we are not going to know how many people had cheated Pokemon, because there's also a lot of players that just had a Pokemon or two removed, which still allows them to compete via the rules, because the rules have been changed to allow cheaters like Wolfglick to not be immediately banned if they're caught with hatched Pokemon, even though the old rules for Pokemon used to say you will be disqualified for any hatched Pokemon. Now it's you will be disqualified if you have 3 or more. So yeah, that goes back into this, and then as we can see, all the influencers are just bad actors, but like I started off this video with, it's been that way the entire time. And now that everything is finally coming down, because you can't have any scene hold up when it's all cheating, they still can't cope, and they're still trying to deflect. So I hope the Pokemon Company sees it. It's like, wait a second, all the players we just disqualified for cheating, they're now trying to attack us for punishing them, even though they were the ones that violated the rules, and now they're trying to like garner sympathy and support, and they're getting arrogant about it. Like, this is where it's just like, nah, just level it all. If you had one hacked Pokemon, banned for a year. If you got disqualified, banned for 2 years. Wolf needs at least 3. Like, we have to, like, they need to crack down harder than we've ever seen before. Also, I feel like anyone that has received a punishment needs to be banned for the first year if we do get an official battle simulator. Just, I want to see what legit Pokemon looks like, because we've never actually had it, and that's sad. That's also why Pokemon's a complete joke, and competitive and esports is dead. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.